All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another special Black Desert video. So, with the Heidel Ball that recently happened, I wanted to go back and cover one of the old videos I made, which is Black Desert worth playing in 2024? Now that the Heidel Ball is over, they talked about a lot of stuff coming out in the game, and before we start that, I just want to say that I've been playing BDO since 2016 when it came out on the NA and EU servers, so my knowledge of the game is, I would say, pretty good, and I think I'll talk about a lot of the things that people want to hear and try to explain it from an outsider perspective, as in, like, you've never heard of Black Desert before, or you've played another MMO in the past, like your traditional ones, and so we'll talk about what it's all about, such as what BDO is, all the different play styles. Is it new player friendly? Is it worth playing now, starting in 2024? The monetization, of course. How much do you have to spend to get into it? Is the game pay to win? And what is there to do in BDO, which are, I think, the important things that people want to hear. So, once again, I'll try to explain this from an outsider's perspective. And let's see. So, BDO is a very fast-paced game. It's a sandbox game, not your traditional MMO. So, for example, if you've played another one, the end game goal is to basically get the max level, get the best gear, do the best, like, highest end dungeons of the expansion, and then repeat until the next expansion, and you do it again. So, the goal of BDO is, well, for the most part, just play for fun, right? To get the gear you want to do. But the difference is there's a lot of different paths you can take to get to the end game goal. So, like, for example, if your goal is to just get best gear, that's one way. But how you get it is, you know, another way. So, for example, if you like fishing, then you could actually get the best gear just by fishing. Or if you like grinding, PvP, and all that stuff. So we'll talk about that as well. But what makes BDO unique compared to other ones is this game has 28 classes. They recently introduced a new one called the Dosa, but I have a video of that if you want to watch more in detail of what that is. But for the most part, BDO has a lot of different classes, whether you think that's a good thing or not, something you enjoy playing. So whether you like playing more of a tanky class than your traditional MMOs, a healer, or DPS, there's a lot of that. Kind of works a little bit differently in terms of there's not specific roles of what you do. However, there are like support things you could play, and for the most part, everyone's a DPS, but like built different. What it's like as a new player versus a veteran player. Is it easy to catch up to veterans if you started now versus like someone like me who's been playing for over 8 years? Yeah, I think it is. There's actually a lot of catch-up mechanics in this game. So whether you started this game today or you've been playing for a month now, they have this thing called seasonal servers, which is not something you really hear too much in terms of like MMOs, more like, you know, those ARPG games like Path of Exile or Diablo, where they have seasons. So they have this thing in BDO where new players can go, and even like players like myself, you can see here, they have this thing called a season character. And basically what that allows you to do is play on a different channel or like season server, which there's a lot of them. You could pick one and there's like, you could swap every 10 minutes. So it's not a big deal. If you feel like you picked a server and then it's not the right one, you can swap every 10 minutes. So it's not a big deal. As long as the only thing you can't swap is like if you play on North American servers versus EU or, you know, certain other ones like Korea and whatnot. But channels, I guess we can call this one, are swappable. So they have new servers or channels for new players and seasonals, which basically give you extra XP and all that stuff, more materials to help you catch up earlier on in the game, which I think is overall a good thing. And plus the events that they have in this game allow newer players to, you know, just catch up. Like recently they gave away a new free Pen Black Star, and basically that's a very expensive endgame weapon that took, you know, players months, if not years, to get back in the day. Now that it's been out for a while, they just kind of hand it out. So I think it's always a good time to actually start BDO if you've been thinking about it. And even if you don't know what class you want to play, like for example, these are all my characters, and each one is for the most part a different class. And I talked about how there's 28 different ones. So yeah, whether you like playing support, tankier class, DPS, assassin, ADC, just or something like that, there's something for you, and I could point you in the right direction. Do you enjoy PvE, which is grinding in circles, just like doing dungeons and stuff with your friends? Do you like playing solo? Do you like doing group content? PvP, of course. There's something for everyone. Life skilling. So I guess one thing that's unique in this game is life skills. So every game has, you know, cooking, alchemy, fishing, the usual stuff. However, most games do not have like a leaderboard system for that, or ranks where, like, if you enjoy fishing, your level ups actually mean something. So one thing that recently added within the past, I would say, year or so, is they had family-wide life skilling. So all of these things, I have detailed videos on what each one does, so I'll leave a link in the description to that one if you're interested. But like, for example, if you like fishing and you want to get all the best gear, you can do fishing if you wanted to. Every life skill connects in one way or another. So we all know what, you know, cooking is, or alchemy and processing. But what makes them unique is they are all specialized and also work together. So for example, if you gather logs from a tree, and then you have workers. So let me show you an example. You have workers that bring your materials back to the storage, and let's say we cut down some trees, right? You can process them, which is the other life skill that we have, and you can turn them into like tier 2 materials. So like, let's say you gather some logs, you can process the logs and turn them into a higher tier one, and then that either sells for more profit, or you can use them for various other things like crafting a fishing rod or hunting rifle or whatnot. But I would say the things that stand out, as a person who does also play other MMOs, such as I've played World of Warcraft in my day, Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls Online, and so on, kind of like RuneScape in a way, they all work together. And I would say the ones that stand out are probably training, because not a lot of games have horse training where it actually matters. Sometimes it's just like, here, catch a horse, and then that's it. But in this game, they actually have a lot of different like types of horses. We've seen the ads, and if you've been playing for the past like year or so, they actually do give out like some pretty high-end horses over the years. And so you can like craft different horses or like breed them as well. Have videos of that if you want to watch it. I think the most unique one would probably be selling and bartering. And finding interesting sailing content in video games is actually very hard. And so, you know, like your traditional MMOs, like, oh, there's a world and you just do whatever you want, and that's basically it. But that feels like 75% of the game. The rest of it is actually ocean content. And I definitely have friends who literally live in the ocean. That's all they do. And so basically the other half is kind of doing whatever you want. And compared to the other games where they just kind of give you a boat and you do whatever you want, you feel like everything in this game you feel like you've earned it. You kind of have to craft all your best gear, or you can, you know, you can't really buy it for ocean content, but it's like you can just work your way to the best things. They do make it easier over the years, which I think is a good thing, because when I did it, it took me months to get it. Now you can do it in less than that. So yeah, I think overall it's a good thing. I think ocean content, which is sailing and bartering on like out in the ocean, is definitely a unique one, and there's a lot to do with that. Life skilling, there's of course your PvE side, which is, do you like grinding? You probably heard of BDO as in like a grindy game. There's different spots to grind, all these different regions, and whether you enjoy grinding slower or more fast-paced spots is definitely something for everyone. And like, it depends on what your gear is, and you could look at all of this stuff, and you could sort by, you know, what your gear score is. So like AP, DP. So I say that, but as a new player, you're probably like, what does that mean? Traditionally, you get the best gear, move to a new grind spot, and you grind harder and more detailed, complicated spots and everything. But this game, you sometimes get rewarded for grinding not necessarily the highest and most valuable spot, but if there's something you need, as in a certain material, you would be there specifically as well. And of course, finally, there's PvP. So I understand PvP is one of those things where you either like it or you don't. There's no real like it's okay kind of thing. But in this game, they have a lot of different game modes. So whether you're a new player, there's open world PvP. So like people you meet in the world, you can just like duel and everything. They also have capped gear PvP. And that means there's like, you don't have to compete with people who have been playing for years or big spenders in this game. So gear is all capped. And that means whether you've been playing for like 3 months, you kind of compete with people of the same skill level, skill based and everything. And then there's also uncapped, which is, you know, anything goes in the way. So the way you would know is in this world, this entire region, you can look at it and actually figure it out by like node wars and there's guild PvP, of course, your standard. And so what they have here is different tiers of nodes. So like, for example, you see right here, it says tier 1. This one is a tier 2, tier 5 and everything. And what that means is like the higher the tier, the like higher the gear requirements are. So like the top end guilds would be on the bigger nodes, whereas like the newer beginner guilds would be on the lower tier nodes and so on. So it doesn't matter like if you've been playing for a long time or not. There's probably something or a guild for you, and I think that's overall a good thing. And yeah, so next we want to talk about is solo versus group content. I think this is actually a big one because a lot of people, you either have friends to play with or you play solo, which I think a majority of people play solo. And this game, admittedly, a lot of the things you do here are by yourself. So there's no gear trading. You could buy gear off the market, but you don't like, you can't just give someone who started out on day one the best gear and stuff and so on. So I think that's a good thing. So that means all the gear you have in this game is like earned, whether you grinded silver and bought the weapon or the armor you wanted, or you made it yourself, which I think is a unique thing. For better or worse, you can craft your own gear, which there's a lot of RNG. We'll talk about that another time. And so I think this game, for the most part, is a majority solo. And then there's like guild PvP. There are some dungeons that you can do with friends, but I would say about like 80% of the game is, you know, like grinding or doing stuff solo, and then the rest of it is group content. So if that's a thing, that it is what it is. And so what kind of things are there to do in this game, and what kind of events are there? So this game is basically an event-driven game. So is the market. That means like every time there's a new patch, which is every week, basically they have some sort of new event to grind out. So for example, the thing we have right now is like you grind and then you get these materials, and then, which you can see right here, a lot of these are event materials, right? So every now and then they cycle through all of these, and then you can get different materials, and then you can like craft different things easier instead of buying it. So like they cycle through a lot of things. It's always an event going on no matter what. And is it bad? No, I think it's overall a good thing to keep people occupied while we wait for new content. And so you're probably wondering next, how is the economy in this game? So like every other game, there's a market system. The difference is you cannot trade. So trade from person to person. So like, for example, I just can't give you specifically my gear, but you can actually buy everything you want. So there's like no RNG if you don't ever want to. All you have to do is save up the silver you need and you're good to go. So I think the economy is, for the most part, pretty solid. I remember when I first started playing this game, basically you had to craft everything yourself, and that was it. Nowadays, they made it a lot easier, and all you really need to know as a new player is you don't have to spend any money on this game to do well, and you can just enjoy yourself, have fun. And so I think the economy is overall good. And like gear progression, as we talked about on seasonals before, as a new player, what you would be doing is they give you new seasonal gear, which is called Tuvala, and basically just speed you up into the real game. I say real game, but like you still are playing it. It's just catch-up mechanics are really fast until you graduate from season, which you can do whenever you want, and then basically just move on from there. So once you graduate seasons, you basically have a good understanding of the game, and then you go from there, which is overall good. So we talked about what BDO is, what there is to do in this game, and more or less of what kind of things you could do as a new player and as a veteran player. We're most likely going to be doing the same things, but just at a different rate. Like, for example, knowledge of this game is way more important than like your gear or everything else, because there's a lot of things in this game that you just learn over the years that is not super explained. But I think, like, for example, every time you start a season, if you've played one season before, you would know what to do in advance, so you would get it done faster than someone who just started out. So knowledge is way more important, and I think that overall it's just a good thing to do, and it's very easy to get into. So if you started today, I think you would do just fine. And okay, so let's talk about the monetization of this game. You've probably wondered this as well. Is Black Desert pay to win? How much do you have to spend in this game to do well? So the way I would look at this, if I was an outsider and just looking to get into this game, would be, you know how your standard AAA games is like $60 to $100 these days, and you just go from there? So that's how I would do it. So let's say I had $100 and I'm like, okay, should I get into this game? I actually do think that you could do really well and get to like end game with $100 spent. So first of all, there is a subscription in this game, but it is optional. And that means it's like you get some bonus rewards, but you don't have to. And I've actually have a lot of videos talking about how you can compete with others, like not compete, but like stay relevant and stuff without spending money. And so I'll leave a link in the description to that. There's a lot of videos I probably will say that for. So there's one thing called the value pack in this game. It's like $15 for a month, your standard subscription price for every other MMO. And basically that allows you to get more buffs than, or not buffs, but like inventory storage, which I think is important. So let me show you the cash shop in this game and tell you about the monetization of it. So to give you a general idea, a pearl box would be like real money to the currency of real money, right? So 100 pearls is essentially $1. They have bundles up to like 200, and then realistically, they kind of have these events that go on every now and then, so it's like 2 for 1. So if you do spend money on this game, there are times where it's probably better to do it than others, but for the most part, we'll just say 100 pearls is $1. Just, we'll make this easy. Doesn't actually work that way. There's more to it, but for the general baseline, that's what it is. Then we have things like the value pack, which is your standard subscription in this game, optional. And then, so like this is 30-day and then 3-month one. They also have another thing called loyalties in this game. So basically this one is non-real money, and you get like 200 of these every day just by logging in, right? And a lot of these are actually really helpful because they give you stuff that you would normally pay for, but by just playing the game. So, you know, if you left your game on but never played it all week, it would just kind of accumulate, right? And then for everyone else that is like, okay, so I have $100, what should I do with it? They have your standard cosmetics and, you know, outfits, very traditional stuff. They have things that are convenience, which is kind of like speeding you up a little bit. And I think that you don't need it. As a person who's played this game for a lot, it's a convenience. And when I say convenience, it just means it speeds you up instead of like spending that extra hour. It's not super important, but there are also, you know, if you like housing or, you know, cosmetic outfits, there's that too. And then there are pets, which actually kind of are important. So, you know, standard pets and stuff. They do help you loot and stuff. So that is one thing that I will admit that is pretty important. So, you know how when you grind in circles for hours, you have to pick up the loot. The pets do that for you. And once again, have videos on how you can do all this free to play and or low spender, and you'll be just fine. And so for the most part, if I were to recommend anything, it's, you know, just, you know, your standard subscription and maybe a few other things you need that I talked about in more detail in another video. So is this game pay to win? Yes and no. So we've all probably seen a video or two of someone spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars getting ahead in this game. It doesn't actually work that way, like yes and no. So it's, if someone were to spend, I don't know, $10,000, can you get to the end game gear? Potentially, yes, but there's also a chance that you don't. So it's kind of like enhancing an RNG, upgrading your gear at the same time. So the one way they kind of prevent someone from just dropping like $1 million or something, there's no one that actually, I don't think there's anyone that has dropped $1 million again on this game, but we've definitely seen something. So they have this thing called a Pearl item selling limit. So Pearl items are like basically your cash shop items, right? And so they do limit it to weekly, so you can't just drop like 10,000 in a week and, you know, just sell it all for silver. There is a weekly cap, which means it's still pretty high, but also to earn that cap of their selling limit, you actually have to play the game, and you can't just dunk it all from day one. So yeah, there are a little bit of measures of that. You can't just, you actually have to play the game before you start spending, which is what I would say you should do anyway. But for realistic purposes, I think for the most part, your normal average person can get away with just spending like $100 and treat it as if you were to buy a AAA game or something like that and do just fine. And yes, so yes, you can spend a lot of money and do well. Realistically, will most people do that? Probably not. Like, I've known people that have played this game for about the same amount of time as I did and have spent less than $1,000 on the game, which that is a lot as well, in my opinion. And I also know some people that have been playing for years and haven't spent a cent on this game and are also at the end game. So yeah, gear progression and all that stuff is tied to basically your time in the game and how much you actually want to invest and do things. Whereas like traditional MMOs, you can't really just, you know, do the dungeon, you give your friends the best gear and so on. You can't do that in this game. Everything you feel like you've gotten, you've earned, because whether you grinded and saved up all the money to get it, or you got lucky and then enhanced it yourself, is one thing. So the last thing I do want to talk about is how often does content come out in this game, and like how far behind do people think they will be at if they were to start today? So kind of like everything else, BDO is on, you know, a quarterly schedule of content releases. Usually we get a new region, which is essentially like an expansion, once a year. And then every now and then, like every quarter, they'll improve a different aspect of the game, such as like they will add new grind spots, new PvP modes, or improve life skilling. So no matter what you do, they'll kind of like have something for you. And then if you're only here for the story of this game and you enjoy questing, there's a lot of stuff that rewards you for that as well. You can do questing on all your characters and, you know, get rewarded for that compared to other games where you've played the game once, or like you do the story once and then you're done. You actually kind of get rewarded for your time, more or less, in this game, depending on what you're doing. But I would say, if you were to go into BDO today, just know that it's not a race to the finish. You just kind of enjoy your time and you get there eventually. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. We have more information on like what's coming out in the future. We talk about those in every other videos. So to keep this video not like 3 hours long, I think I covered all the relevant things about BDO, new player friendly versus veterans. We talked about the monetization of this game. And I'll also leave some links in the description to some of my older videos that I covered. And it talks about some of the topics we covered here, but in more detail. So if anything caught your attention, you can watch those and I'll probably explain it, but that's also not like explaining it from an outsider perspective. But anyway, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I make videos for beginners, new players, returning players, and people who are just looking to get better at this game. So if you are thinking about trying out BDO today, tomorrow, this week, this year, I think it's a good time to start. I think overall, you'll find your time enjoyable. And yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you come back. And I upload pretty regularly, so I will see you tomorrow.